Awesome. All right, guys, welcome. I'm Amy Post. I am the host of Advocacy and Hope. I thank you so much for your time today. Today, we're doing something a little different. I'm totally new to all of the live streaming, so this is really, really cool. And I have a special guest back on again. I spoke with Amber Vilhauer, what was it, last month, about all of your success, the book, No Guts, No Glory, your books and business, and now we get to kind of do it again. So I am thrilled to have you here. And my friend, I just absolutely appreciate you so much. Welcome.
I feel the same way. You know I do. I mean, Amy's like my sister, my soul sister. I just want to do life with her. And I'm just so proud of your courage and the work that you're putting out into the world and the impact that you're making. And it's everything that I believe in and speak to. So I just think you're awesome as well.
I appreciate that. And we had such a great conversation on the last podcast. And I think that something I really want the viewers to continue to pay attention to as we talk through this is, I've had almost 20 years of a great success in medical sales. You've had 17 plus successful years in marketing and online and, publishing. And so when I started this journey, I was terrified. And I think you just need that perfect tribe, that perfect group, that perfect person to help you kind of get through that resistance. And I have several things that I really want to kind of dive into. I think we could probably talk all night,
Yeah.
but I really want to dive into some additional things that we may have touched on last time. But I really want, once again, I've read it inside and out. I can't even close the book now. I just can't even close it because of all the
I
pages.
still am such a dork. I just keep flipping through it because of the color, because of the fonts and the highlight in there. It's just, even this morning, Amy, I was preparing for a workshop for a group and I just thought, what wants to emerge for this group today? And I just found myself thumbing through and I just get lost in the pages. And I know that that's like a weird thing to say as the author, but this happens so quickly, as you know. And yet each time I go into it, I get something different out of it, even being the one that wrote it. So
yeah,
thanks for
I think every entrepreneur, no matter if you're in the new stages, middle, wherever you are in that journey, I pick this book up all the time and look back. And the things that we're going to talk about kind of today and really dive in are those specific things that I think hit people. We could really talk a lot more about all of the different things that you have done and your successes. But this book just honestly oozes you. And it made me feel so amazing because I was so scared to launch my book because it put my entire story and my whole heart out there on the line for people to judge. And I think that this book, as I see it, it is your truth. But you talk about so many great things. So I know that you've had 17 plus years in the online marketing, working with some of the most amazing entrepreneurs out there. I really want to ask you, and I know we may have talked about it very briefly, but within your book, was it just an immense healing process for you to kind of write this book? And then I know that you started your book many, many years ago, but for those that are thinking about writing a book, what would you tell them to just kind of push them to that next level to finally write the book that they've been thinking about, or just telling their story? And like myself, I could have journaled it, but I put it in a book out there for people, and it's been amazing.
Yeah, thank you. I have tried to write a book many times. I would say one time specifically, I tried really hard. And the other times I tried to some degree. I hired professional help because I was too busy to do it myself. And each time I went to write the book, it was a different book that I was focused on. So it wasn't like the same book for 20 years, but for one reason or another, it just wasn't the right time. So this person had life challenges, or I had life challenges, or then this other thing happened and it just wasn't right. And on January 1st of this year, I did not have intention of launching a book this year. And by January 7th, divine intervention hit, and it was like, okay, I'm writing the book this year. And I had a very accelerated timeline because I was called to have the books in hand at an April conference that I was hosting. So it's January 7th. I asked the printer, like, what's my time frame? She said, you have to give me the final edited version of the manuscript by the end of February, edited, so that she can just do the proofread, the typesetting, get it up on retailers, and get it out the door. And I made it within one day. Like one day later, I wouldn't have hit the goal. And the book that I thought I was going to write was one about how to launch your book and how to turn it into a brand that grows revenue and fulfillment and impact, because that's been my work for 17 years. Publishing companies have been waiting for me to write that book. And I sat down and thought, okay, fine, I'll write the book already. So I start writing it only to find that that is not the book that wanted to emerge. I did push that content into part 2 of Infinite Impact. But in part 1, what emerged was from a question that I asked myself. Of the thousands of people I've talked to in the last several decades, what do they all have in common? And the answer that came up was they are out of alignment. And I thought, out of alignment? I've never said that before. What does that mean exactly? And the more I started to look at my work through that lens, a foundational 4 framework was presented based on common business pillars, avatar, vision, why, and values. However, Amy, it was horribly confronting for me, because when I saw this framework, based on what I had been doing largely, the one pillar that was not based on my work was why. Now, why is commonly because I want to help people, right? Which is really usually paired closely with my vision, which is to help people. So that's as much as the business world has sort of taught it. But I advocate that if your vision is how you're in service to humanity, your why is how that is in service to you, to fill an unmet need that you have in your life. And when I saw that, Amy, like everything changed. It was horribly confronting. It was very difficult to like decode some of what was coming up for me. And then I had to decode it, understand it, heal from it, to then be able to write about it objectively. No trauma dumping here. But I had to make a case for it. And then I had to prove it. So I got beta readers to start proving this concept, getting myself back into alignment because of some major life changes that had happened. I didn't realize it kicked me out of alignment. And all of this was happening in my 2-month time frame to get the book done and edited. So yes, it was healing. I feel free on the other side of it. I am clearly in alignment. And when I see the impact on relationships around me, when I feel what I feel like every single day, where I used to feel like I was pushing, grinding, forcing, coping, I don't feel those things anymore. Now I just get to be. And yet I've never had faster, easier success in my career than I have now. So that book is like something magical, man. Yeah, that was the process.
I agree with you. And I think that that was absolutely perfect. And I don't think that you can be authentic, and anyone can be truly authentic, if we aren't free. You live in this little glass box that you create. And like myself, I isolated in that little box. And I think, as I read your book, I mean, I love that you mentioned the authenticity. And I'm not sure that people continue to actually know what that means, or who they are, or their why, and definitely not their vision and their purpose. And I think it all really goes back to that authenticity, because they're diamonds in the rough if you really, really are that authentic individual. So talk a little bit more about that, because I know you talk about AI and different things that really kind of come in and challenge your authenticity.
So when 2020 hit and the pandemic started, this was also at the time of the last election. There was a lot of divisiveness. The media went bananas, and mistrust was at an all-time high. We didn't know who to trust or what to believe. A lot of conspiracy theories flying around, Meanwhile, we're isolated at home, which in and of itself can do mental health challenges for individuals.
Yeah.
Then we sort of slipped back into our routine of coping in the new normal.
Mhm.
And then AI was introduced. And now there is a wildfire of misinformation, deep fakes. Don't get me started. And that's baked on top of this disillusionment of the online world where everybody says, my life is great. And so we measure ourselves against that. So we don't know who to trust. We basically have exponentially grown in insecurity. We are coping at levels of never before. Information is completely inundating us. We're exhausted, fatigued, burnt out, and unsure of who to trust. Now, I'm not a doom and gloom person, Amy, but this is not being discussed at the level that it should, in my opinion. And now we're headed into another election, which, man, the writing is on the wall. We sense it. But so that's all happening. And my personal feeling is that individuals are, this whisper we have inside of us is getting louder of like, there's something more for you. You're not living in congruence. And I was just talking with somebody today that said, I want to live in alignment, but I have these responsibilities at home. I have to put food on the table. I've got bills. It's too much of a risk to open up Pandora's box to get into alignment because I don't know what happens on the other side of that. So I guess, should I just stay here miserable, unfulfilled, coping? And we are masters at justification. So we can find joy and fulfillment, even if we have to force it and then pretend we're not forcing it in this other world. But that whisper is going to start to get louder. And I think that all of this is happening to shift us into a state of congruence because humanity is so out of balance. Like, come on, I can't be the first person to see that. So authenticity means that you are removing the mask. You're getting out of the glass box. I described it as a castle of my own design, layers upon layers upon layers of protection. And when I dared to dismantle the castle and look at who was left, it was a terrified little girl. And so I understand you talk about, it was terrifying for me to write that incredible, remarkable book that you wrote. Because that's the real you. And then what happened on the other side of that is love and praise and recognition and ultimately freedom. So we still have this balance when we're doing the work of like, how do I have my old life, which is my present life, match with this me that wants to emerge? And that's why mentorship is really good and why you need to know Amy, because she's doing it and you can band with her and experience that with her on her journey. But the work is real and you can try to ignore it as much as you want to, but it's going to emerge at some point. And the longer you wait to answer the calling of that whisper, the louder the kaboom is going to be in your life to wake you the heck up. And you can bypass some of that pain. You just listen to it now and do the work, get into alignment, surround yourself with good people that have your back, and you're going to be fine. It's actually amazing on the other side. You will feel free, which is what you want anyway. So
I think if anybody is thinking about what is rustling inside of them, what is keeping them up at night, what is literally playing, like myself, I had those videos in my head. I had just agitation. I had sadness, anger, fear. I thought I was going through some, midlife situations.
Totally.
But you take a step back, and I think everybody needs to realize that if they can pick this book up and read it and start doing what I did and folded down the pages and wrote things and bookmarks. And I've seen people that put, the little tabs on the sides. And honestly, going back to this is great. So, and to contact you and to start working with you on what they want to do. And it was the reason why I created the community that I did, because you helped me feel as though I was safe and could create something like that. And people would feel comfortable coming to me. One, because we were really digging into that authenticity, but also we really talked about, what's holding people back and that resistance factor And you talk a lot about the resistance, and it is so very true. And we make every single excuse, and they're real. I'm not telling, anybody that their communication with themselves is not real, because it absolutely is. We have
Oh,
those
yeah.
fears and realities and things that really immerse. But I think after working with you, and as we've just become very good friends, you realize who those people are that you really need to stay very, very close to, because those are the individuals that are going to take you to that next level, like yourself and myself. And this authenticity, I couldn't ask for someone that is more authentic than you. And I felt like I was a loner out there for so long, meandering around looking for these very authentic people. And so I want to kind of touch also on that resistance, because that is something that I think everybody fights, and it's that challenge. But there's so many things we could dive into, but that resistance is a really powerful, powerful thing that can be extremely negative, and we can hold ourselves back from so many great things.
Yeah. So resistance is especially common in entrepreneurs, because we are constantly exposing ourselves to promote our message, trying to get heard and seen and be valued, right? There's a value exchange where I hand you money to mentor me. That's an exchange of value. And as an entrepreneur, we and we alone are responsible for getting the message out and then having that value exchange. And what I found for most entrepreneurs, Amy, is that something in our past taught us that when we're seen and heard, a bad thing happens.
Mm-hmm.
For me, the first time I really took a stand to share my truth, I got jumped by 5 girls at a party that I didn't realize was made up for me. Now, just imagine the psychological damage that does to a child who's just using her voice for the first time. That's the outcome. So our brain buries that belief in our subconscious, saying, oh my God, every single time she opens her mouth, something bad's going to happen. Maybe I'm not going to get beaten up, but maybe I get punished in some other way. Maybe somebody bullies me, or somebody judges me or shames me or abandons me, or whatever it is. Like, there's tons of examples I could give you from my own personal experience, and I do in the book. But what happens is we grow up into adulthood, and those things are buried in our subconscious, driving our decision making. And so a lot of times, like, people want to write the book, that's their heart's desire. But when it comes time to actually getting it done, we meet resistance, and it shows up in the form of an incomplete project. I'll get to it later. Oh, I have to rethink the premise and start all over again. How convenient, right? All of the excuses that I had that were very legitimate at the time, and I didn't even connect the dots to see, oh my gosh, all of that was actually just resistance to me being heard and seen, because I thought unconsciously that something bad would happen. So I actually included a full chapter in the book on resistance to really expose logically what's happening. This isn't some woo conversation, and I'm not a therapist. This is like the fact of what happens and how that memory is recalled as a blind spot and gets in our way. And it happens if you're not an entrepreneur too. I'm just giving you one example. Then I have another chapter in the book called The Courage to Course Correct, meaning I was on this path, but now that I'm awake and aware of that, I have the courage to shift back into alignment so that I'm not being held back by stuff that happened decades ago. So then I can collect this evidence that when I'm seen and heard, good things happen. And I can make a whole long list of all the times that I opened up my mouth and received love, 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 acknowledgement, awards, financial exchange, whatever it was. And now my adult conscious brain is like, oh, well, it's not so scary to be heard and seen then. So if I can do that, what if I took it one step deeper and expressed all of myself? And that was a scary moment for me. Writing this book was scary because, Amy, I hadn't done it to this degree until this book came out. I had more tears and more anguish and challenge, arm wrestling myself of like, can you do it? But I knew that if I had to be the model. I had to be the model so that I could give natural courage to other people to pursue who they really are too. And for me, it really came out of this exhaustion. I was so exhausted living in the castle, people pleasing, over delivering because I didn't know my own value, that I knew it was not sustainable. The older I get, I don't have energy to waste. I'm just naturally more tired. So to me, this was a math equation. Like I had to figure this out. So I ripped off the clothing, put it in the book in a very responsible way. I wasn't trauma dumping. I was very objective, and I was very clear. And I simplified a lot of this, again, to give courage to other people who think, you know what, it's worth the risk. I don't want to live my life coping, wearing these masks. I deserve to be me in this life. That is my birthright. So I too, if Amber can do it, if Amy can do it, I think I can do it too. And we can then model change in the world by allowing people to be who they are. I mean, how sad is that, that cultural conditioning has gotten us away from that? But the opportunity is here and the moment is now.
Absolutely. I mean, I can honestly say I found myself by reading your book, and it allowed me to start creating exactly what I want to create, because it is simple, but it is so very on target. And you don't have to read page after page and go, what did I just read? I have to go read it again. You want to read it again because it's so powerful, and it just seeps inside of you. And so I think for anybody out there that's looking for anything that's really going to move them forward, this is absolutely probably one of the best books I've ever read in my entire life. And I love reading books. I have a library behind me and upstairs. And so I just love it. I absolutely love it. I have it on my table, and it's just amazing. You've talked about it, and I know I didn't understand this until I read your book, and you've mentioned it just briefly, and I don't want to take you over. We've got a few more minutes left, but alignment, the importance, the absolute imperative importance of being in alignment, and what you have found over 17 years of working with these entrepreneurs, and what you can tell kind of, I guess, that new entrepreneur or somebody who's just really, they've kind of lost maybe their why, or they're really uncertain even what's happening. Like myself, I really didn't even know. I was just meandering around.
Yeah. So I would say first, if you sense something is off, you're right. That is your intuition trying to get your attention. Yeah. And it could be you're in the middle of arguing with your wife, or you're not paying attention to your child, or you have conflict at work, or you're driving home and all of a sudden become aware of how much you're clenching the steering wheel unnecessarily. Whatever that moment is for you, you'll have a knowing that something doesn't feel right in your life. That's your intuition trying to wake you up. It's trying to communicate in the only way that it knows how, through a physical communication. So you have to listen to that. So that's kind of number one. And then number two, know that your alignment is when you are operating from your true, deep down core values and beliefs. Yeah. And so sometimes there's work to be done to uncover what that even means, because this stuff isn't taught in school. A lot of our parents surely didn't know these things either. Like, humanity is just starting to wake up to this. And I was one of the fortunate ones that got to be here in this moment as part of this movement. So believe me when I say this is the honor of 17 lifetimes if we get to come back and do it again. But truly, there are 4 pillars that all line up to keep you in alignment, so that when you're in the fight with your wife, you can see more objectively what's happening. You don't get completely lost in the wave of the moment, and the emotion takes you over, and then you get lost for days or weeks or months or years, and you just don't know what's going on. You can instantly identify when somebody is coming in and basically kind of interacting with your value system. And then you have a choice to make. Do I want this to continue? And either, I mean, in the case of a husband and wife, you can set up boundaries, you can go to counseling. There's a lot of things that you can do, expressing your trueness to your partner, right? And otherwise, it's a lot of like self corrections that happen.
Mhm.
So in the moment when I should be playing with my kid instead of up here wanting to be somewhere else, that's an awareness in the moment of, does this really align with my deeper values and what I'm here to do and how I want to shape my child's future? And if the answer is no, you're out of alignment. So now you have a process or a measuring stick to say, I'm not fully out of alignment, but it's just this one piece. And I recognize that when I overwork at my job, I then get exhausted. And so overworking is out of alignment with my values, let's say. And because I did overwork this day, I come home and now I'm a bad dad or I'm a bad mom.
Yeah.
So there's this ripple effect that occurs. And if you're aware of your values, then you know, oh my gosh, I can't overwork, because then all of these other things are going to happen that will make me feel bad and have a huge impact and a negative one. So I just simply can't overwork. And knowing that information allows me to set up different rule structures or get help in my workload, et cetera, et cetera. And now everything is in harmony because I didn't overwork. I got home, I was rested, I played with the kid, my wife was happy, I went to bed feeling fulfilled. So we just have no awareness to the ripple effect of being out of alignment, but it is catastrophic. So the work is simple, but it just hasn't been taught before.
Yeah, I think it has so much to do with, when we were going through my situation with my daughter and, us needing to get our actual bodies in alignment with our functional medicine and chiropractor. It is the same thing. And I think we don't take time to step back and give ourselves grace and sit back in those moments of silence. But also when I sat back with your book in those moments of silence, and I remember sitting in my car and just reading it, that is what people need. And I think that was my self-care. It was just such a wonderful opportunity for my self-care. So I won't go too much into that. I mean, I don't know if there's anything else that you, truly, truly want to mention. I mean, I could talk about, there's so many coaches out there. You've set yourself apart. You've had so many accomplishments and you've done this so, so well where so many kind of fall on the wayside. I don't know if there's any additional advice, thoughts that you really feel that could be, powerful in the way, because that's a huge topic and it's so important.
Thank you. Yeah, I would just say that number one, don't feel like you have to blow up your whole life. That's not what we're talking about here. Yeah. But it is, how can I find the freedom inside that allows me to shift how I feel about the life that I'm in so that I can be happier, calmer, more fulfilled, more clear, more focused, more present, more loving. So you don't have to move and get a new job and get a divorce and all the things. We're not here to be rash. We're here just to make sure that we're listening to the whisper and we're kind of with the tuning fork, we're getting in alignment here. And it will naturally enhance everything else around you. So that's number one. Number two is everybody needs help. Okay. Yes. This is human being 101 stuff. Everybody needs help. What I have done selfishly is I've created a membership community that's at a very low month-to-month rate, easy to join for people that want belonging in the way that I did. That's a selfish part. Is I was struggling to find people like me. And so I just created the table, and I'm seeing a lot of individuals who've been starving for these deeper conversations, richer, more conscious conversations, co-creating the future. They don't have anywhere else to go. So I created this membership space, not to make a fortune and be greedy and transaction and ego. I don't care about all that stuff. It's more of just containing a space for rich conversation. So that's an opportunity available to anybody that reads the book. The information is in the book. It's on my website at amberv.com. But also, Amy, I am just about to launch a certification program because a lot of people have said, I want to help people get into alignment. Getting into alignment myself was such a life-changing moment. I want to do that for other people. So literally this month, I'm opening up the first cohort for certified coaches to come in, even if they're not a coach up to this point, but to learn coaching skills, do practicums, go through and get aligned themselves, and then learn how to do this as an offering that feeds into their business or life coaching, business, whatever it is. But there are a lot of different ways that people interact with this work. And I'm just so grateful for that. So there's room for you anywhere in this ecosystem. I'd love to get to know you and support your journey, or even do an alignment session with you one-on-one, if that would be helpful. And I want to end by saying, I am trying to do life with Amy Post, not just as her friend, but I am a big and deep believer in her value and work in the world as a professional, guiding people through this space. So please reach out to her and say, I'm in, how can you help me? So that we fan this entrepreneurial flame in her, because she's absolutely the real deal. And I want our businesses to align and integrate so we can help more people together. So just sharing a nice public intention for all, Amy.
Yes. And I have been in one of the meetings for the membership, and I absolutely love it. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. And I think for anybody who's looking for something, join Amber's group, join my community. You can't be involved and be in better groups with people that love you and give you hope and encouragement and support, and it's safe. And it's just, I have never felt better about myself in my entire life. And if anybody reads my book, they'll know Out of the Gray into the Light is an absolute truthful statement of complete and disarray of darkness into gray and finally into the light. And you, Amber, have helped me completely start coming out of that. And I can't wait to see what our future brings. I absolutely love you. And I think that everybody out there needs to pick up a copy of Infinite Impact. There's more great things in this book than I can even talk about. And let's just keep this going. Let's just get encouragement and hope and get people in alignment, because that is going to change this world immensely. I can't wait.
No. Well, Amy, thank you for giving us the time and the platform to have this conversation. I'm going to share it through my platform as well to get the message out. And everybody else, thanks for tuning in. And we will definitely have a follow-up to this conversation. Share with Amy your comments on today and what impacted you. And just thanks so much for being here.
Yes. And thank you, everyone, for your time. I always appreciate you so much. Thank you.